kind of bands that it's not our thing. And I was just like, I said, I don't want to be a part of this scene. This is not who we are. It's not who I am. I don't give.
Right.
Go back home. Take that picture in the inner sleeve in our driveway, in our cars, with the blue jeans and t-shirts on, and sell that Malibu house. And you come out here and everyone's always looking over the shoulder and they've got that, who's the bigger guy in the room? Who can I go and work? Who can
Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest video. Jon Bon Jovi embodies the essence of rock and roll royalty. For decades, he's ruled the stage, packed arenas with fans, and sung some of the most famous songs of all time. But behind the fame, the lights, and the bigger-than-life persona, he was facing a devastating diagnosis and a battle he never thought he'd have to fight. Could this signal the end of an era, or is Jon Bon Jovi poised to reaffirm his status as a true rock legend? Stay tuned as we reveal the heartbreaking truth behind his mental health crisis. Getting Bon Jovi, John Francis Bon Jovi Jr. loved music as soon as he heard the first notes. He started his first band at 13, and by 16, they were playing in clubs across New Jersey, despite being too young. But their big break wasn't until 1980, when John got a job as a janitor at the Power Station Studios in Manhattan, a recording studio co-owned by his cousin. It was there that he recorded demos, including Runaway. John's visit to the New York radio station WAP 103.5 FM was the turning point. He performed Runaway at the Apple for the station's promotion director, who then included it in an album featuring local talent. The song got a lot of airplay, first in the New York area and then in other markets. This led to a recording contract with Mercury Records in 1983, but that's also when he realized he needed a real band, not just a group of friends who like to play together sometimes. Keyboardist David Bryan, bassist Alec John Such, drummer Tycho Torres and guitarist Richie Sambora stepped up to the game. They were different in background and style, but together they had something special. That something was about to take the world by storm. Their early years were brutal. The guys played anywhere that would have them: small clubs, dive bars, opening slots for bigger acts, sometimes for pennies, sometimes for nothing at all. They were broke, hungry and exhausted, but they were also determined, sleeping on floors, sharing whatever food they could scrape together, and living out of their suitcases became the norm. But what they lacked in comfort they made up for in raw passion. Every night they gave everything they had on stage, hoping that the right person would be watching, that this gig would be the one to changed their lives. And then it happened. In 1984 they released their self-titled debut album, and while it didn't make them instant superstars, it was enough to get them noticed. Runaway had already gained traction on the radio, and it helped the album sell modestly well. The follow-up 7,800 Degrees Fahrenheit was meant to take things a step further, but it fell short of expectations. Critics weren't kind, and the band knew that if they didn't come up with something massive for their next record, they might not get another shot. They needed a hit. Actually, they needed a whole album of hits, and that's exactly what they created. By 1986, Slippery When Wet hit the shelves, and nothing was ever the same again. The album exploded onto the scene, dominating the charts and turning Bon Jovi into a household name. You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer became instant classics, played on every radio station, blasted in every car, and screamed by fans at every concert. The band was suddenly everywhere, on magazine covers, late-night talk shows, and the biggest stages in the world. The album spent 8 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200, and to this day it remains one of the best-selling albums of all time. The guys had made it. They were living the dream, but success, as they soon realized, came at a cost. With fame came an unforgiving schedule. They were on tour, constantly playing night after night, sometimes barely sleeping before getting back on stage. Again, the exhaustion was real, but the pressure to keep going was even greater. John, as the frontman, felt it the hardest. He wasn't just the face of Bon Jovi, he was the leader, the driving force behind the band, and the one expected to keep everything moving forward. He started pushing himself past his limits, ignoring the warning signs his body was giving him. The adrenaline kept him going, but beneath the surface the cracks were already forming. By the late 80s the relentless grind was beginning to take its toll. John was physically and emotionally worn out, and the guys barely had time to breathe, let alone enjoy what they had worked so hard to build. The industry machine didn't care if they were tired. They wanted more albums, more hits, and more tours, so they kept going. But deep down, John knew that if they didn't slow down, something was going to break. The only question was when. That's the dark side of fame: exhaustion, depression, and near collapse. For Jon, being the lead singer meant carrying the weight of leadership. He wasn't just the singer, he was the face of Bon Jovi. He made decisions and held everything together. The pressure was immense, and it was about to push him to his breaking point after the huge success of Slippery When Wet. The band was at the top of their game, but success comes with a price. People kept asking for more music, tours, and shows. In 1988, they released New Jersey, an album that cemented their status as rock legends. To promote it, they went on the New Jersey Syndicate Tour, a grueling marathon that ran from 1988 to 1990 and included over 230 concerts around the world. The tour showed how dedicated they were, but it also showed how hard such a busy schedule could be. Night after night, city after city, the band gave it their all on stage, but behind the scenes, the cracks were beginning to show. The constant pace left little time for rest or recovery. Jon, as the leader, felt a strong duty to keep the momentum going. He pushed himself harder and harder, ignoring the growing signs of exhaustion. Being in charge became heavy, and the pressure to keep up their success was constant. The constant touring and lack of rest started to have a terrible effect on Jon's mental and physical health. He was so tired that he ended up in a dark place, struggling with depression. His busy routine didn't leave him any time to think or heal, and the stress of fame made his condition worse. One night, when things were really bad, Jon was in the back seat of a fast-moving car. The stress of his responsibilities, his exhaustion, and his depression led to a moment of pure desperation in which he thought about ending it all by jumping out of the moving car. It was only a fleeting thought, but it showed how bad his mental health had become. This almost tragic event was a wake-up call that showed how much the constant pressure he was under was hurting him. The physical demands of the tour were just as hard on him. Jay's voice, the instrument that made the band famous, started to hurt from not getting enough rest and performing so much. He ignored medical advice and kept performing because he felt he owed it to his fans and bandmates, but even the strongest bodies can only do so much. During one performance, the unthinkable happened. Jon's body gave out, and he collapsed on stage. This was the result of months of being overworked and ignoring his health. Medics rushed to his aid, and the audience watched in stunned silence. It was a sobering moment that showed how much fame had hurt him physically and mentally. This event forced the band to face the unsustainable nature of their lifestyle. They realized that to keep making music and performing, they needed to put their health and well-being first. The near collapse served as a turning point, leading to a re-evaluation of their schedules and a more balanced approach to their careers. Little did anyone know that this was just a warning. The most sad news was yet to come. The news that changed everything. For years the singer Jon Bon Jovi kept pushing himself to the brink of exhaustion for the sake of music. He started his own label Janko Records in 1991 and released the band's biggest hit ever, Always, in 1994. In the same decade he even started a successful film career starring in both movies and TV series. For a while Bon Jovi was everywhere people looked and his voice was in everyone's ears at all hours all over the world, but over the decades that voice started to dimmer. Fans had always known him for his powerful gritty vocals, but by 2022 something was off. His voice didn't sound the same. Some thought it was just aging, while others believed years of constant touring had finally caught up with him. But Jon himself knew something wasn't right. He could feel it every time he stepped on stage. The wake-up call came during a show in Nashville. After the performance, Jon turned to his wife Doratha, as he always did, looking for feedback, but this time her response caught him off guard. She told him his voice wasn't right. "This is bad," she said. Her words weren't harsh, just honest, and that honesty forced Jon to face what he had been trying to ignore. Something was seriously wrong with his singing. Jon decided to see a specialist. He needed answers, and what he got was worse than he had imagined. Vocal cord atrophy is a serious medical condition in which the vocal folds thin and weaken over time, making it harder to control pitch and power. It wasn't just a bad night or being tired, he had a serious illness. Jon was facing the fact that he might never sing the same way again. For a singer of his caliber, this wasn't just a setback, he felt like he was losing a part of himself. "I've sung for 40 years, he later said when he thought about the diagnosis. "Suddenly I was losing my ability." He had built his whole career on his voice, every song, every show, every album, and now he was losing it. It was a crisis that left him emotional and heartbroken. Should he keep going, or should he have to give up the thing he loved most? To regain control of his voice, Jon decided to fight. In 2022, he had surgery on his vocal cords, but the procedure was delicate, and there was no guarantee that recovery would be slow. There was also no way of knowing if his voice would ever be the same. Rebuilding his voice took months of intense therapy. Jon had to relearn how to sing while working with specialists every day. He did breathing exercises, vocal strengthening techniques, and careful speech training. Unlike broken bones, which heal with rest, vocal cords need constant conditioning to recover. Jon didn't give up. He set new goals. He wouldn't rush back into touring, but he wanted to sing again on his own terms. It was frustrating that progress was slow, and there were times when he wondered if he'd ever get back on stage. "I'm well into recovery," he said in a 2023 chat. "I'm more than capable of singing, it's just that for me the bar is 2.5 hours a night 4 nights a week before I say we're going to do any shows." He wasn't ready to go back until he was sure he could perform at his best. Slowly, his voice began to come back. It wasn't exactly the same as before, but he was getting better. The show in Nashville was a sign. It was a shock to hear the news. Jon never lost his love for singing, even though the surgery was risky. He wasn't ready to say goodbye to more than just his voice yet. But Jon Bon Jovi's problems didn't end with his voice. His life has been full of health scares, mental health problems, and family crises that no amount of fame or money could protect him from. In October 2021, Jon was supposed to perform at a small fan event in Miami Beach. Everything seemed fine until a routine CO-19 test came back positive, even though he had been vaccinated and had no symptoms. He had to cancel the event right away and go into isolation. Fans were shocked, and Jon reassured them that he was fine. No one knew what the long-term effects of the virus would be, but it seemed like a minor problem at first, but over time, people started to wonder if CO-19 had made his voice problems worse. Medical research has linked CO-19 to long-term damage in the respiratory system, with some singers reporting ongoing voice problems. Even after he got better, Jon's voice still didn't seem to fully recover from the infection. His already weak vocal cords may have taken an extra hit from the virus. But Jon's problems weren't just physical. 2013 was one of the hardest years in his career. Richie Sambora, his right-hand man for 30 years, quit the band in the middle of a tour, leaving Jon to handle the fallout on his own. It wasn't just about replacing a guitarist, it was about losing a best friend. Jon later admitted that Richie's departure felt like betrayal, and the stress of trying to keep the band afloat without him nearly broke him. He was emotionally drained, questioning everything he had built. The music industry had changed and the band was facing a tough fight to stay relevant. With Richie gone, Jon felt the weight of responsibility like never before, but the lowest point of his life had come a year earlier in 2012. His daughter Stephanie was away at college when Jon received a terrifying call. She had overdosed on heroin in her dorm room. She was unresponsive when paramedics arrived, and for a brief moment Jon feared the worst. Thankfully she survived, but for Jon the experience changed everything. He had spent decades living the rock star life, but nothing prepared him for the pain of almost losing his child. He later described it as his worst moment as a father, a wake-up call that put everything in perspective. These events reshaped Jon Bon Jovi. His health battles, his personal struggles, and the pain of nearly losing his daughter forced him to reassess what truly mattered. In an emotional interview after his heartbreaking vocal cord atrophy diagnosis, Jon broke down as he thought back to all the challenges he'd faced over the years. Through every setback, singing had been his way to cope, the one thing he could control in a life that kept spinning out. But when the doctors told him he might never sing again, he felt like he had lost every sense of purpose. This was a fight he could not win. After all, who was Bon Jovi without his voice? What would he do for the rest of his life? For a while Jon was reminded of the time in his youth when he thought about jumping off a speeding car to end it all. If he couldn't sing, did he still have a reason to live? Would people still care about him if he couldn't charm them all with his voice? Maybe the answers were a resounding no, and he should just quit before he embarrassed himself any further. But when he was at his lowest point, desperate to find a reason to keep going, he realized that it was easier than he thought. The people he loved still needed him, his family, his fans, and everyone else. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a husband, a father, and a man fighting to hold on to the things he loved most. So he would fight. The diagnosis might have broken his heart, but he would work hard to put it back together. The return put his strength to the test on stage again following surgery on his vocal cords in 2022. Fans and critics alike were eagerly waiting to see if Jon Bon Jovi could regain his famous voice and stage presence. The excitement was palpable as he prepared to step back into the spotlight. The first test came in February 2024, when Jon performed for an audience for the first time since his surgery. The venue was buzzing with excitement and a touch of apprehension. Would the rock legend still have the vocal prowess that had defined his career? As he took the stage, everyone held their breath. To their delight, Jon delivered a performance that, while reflecting on his journey, showed off his enduring talent and strength. Building on this success, Jon continued to tour. Bon Jovi released their 16th studio album, Forever, on June 7, 2024. It was more than just a collection of songs, it was a representation of Jay's journey through hardship and his unwavering dedication to his craft. The album's lead single, Legendary, came out on March 14, 2024, setting the tone for the album's themes of strength and reflection. Forever got mostly good reviews, with reviewers praising how reflective it was and how it sounded like the band's old stuff. AllMusic's Stephen Thomas Erwin said that the record shows off a new band while capturing the spirit of a group that has been together for decades. Steve Bbe of Kerrang called it an album by an artist who has much to celebrate and nothing left to prove, pointing out the open road joy in the music. Even though the album was a success and Jon started performing again, he was still hesitant to go on a full-scale world tour. In interviews, he talked about the physical demands of touring and how important it was for him to give performances that met his high standards. He said, "I won't sing unless I can give it my best, but I'm not done yet." This time period also saw the release of the Hulu documentary series Thank You Good Night, The Bon Jovi Story, which followed Jon's treatment and his road to recovery. It showed how committed he was to quality and how much he wanted to keep connecting with fans. The series gave fans a close look at the problems he was having and how determined he was to solve them. This made the link between the artist and his fans even stronger. Jay's cautious approach to travel didn't make him less involved with his fans, he still went to some shows and events, making sure that each one was important and up to his standards. This plan helped him stay healthy while still sharing his music and story with the world. Fans all over the world were thrilled about his comeback, inspired by his journey and ready to support him in whatever he does next. They loved him when he first started, through all of his ups and downs, and they will love him forever. What Jon Bon Jovi left behind. Jon Bon Jovi's impact goes beyond music. His songs have shaped generations, but his true legacy is built on something deeper, his unwavering fight for those in need. Through his JBJ Soul Kitchen restaurants, he has dealt with hunger and homelessness in a way that few celebrities have. These community-driven kitchens work on a pay-it-forward system, where people who can pay contribute and people who can't are encouraged to volunteer in exchange for a meal. Jon's goal isn't just charity, it's also dignity. His Jon Bon Jovi Soul Foundation has funded affordable housing projects that help veterans, at-risk youth, and families who are having a hard time find stability. He's never been the type to just give money and leave. Instead, he shows up, works with volunteers, and listens to the people he's helping. That's what millions of people find unique about him. As a husband, father, friend, and most importantly, a good man, Jon Bon Jovi is more than just a rock star. He shows that even in the worst times, there's always a reason to keep going. His legacy isn't just about music, it's about heartbreak, hope, and the idea that no one should ever be left behind. In recent interviews, he's been publicly emotional as he talked about all the problems he's had and the devastating diagnosis that almost made him quit music, but he hasn't shed a tear. Jon's message is clear: even when life takes everything away, you should keep fighting. Do you think Bon Jovi's new comeback is the start of something even bigger, or will he decide to retire for good? Let us know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.